video I'm going to be reading from Palestine at the time of Christ. So, our daily life in Palestine at the time of Christ. And by Henri Daniel. Okay, the section I'm going to read, and the title of this video is going to be, Who Were the Am-Ha-Arez? So, Am-Ha-Arez is a Jewish term. So, I'm going to go ahead and start reading. It says, There was one class of workers, however, whom the doctors of the law to a man detested, and against whom they preached a horrified hatred. They were called the Am-Ha-Arez. A very curious anthology could be made from all those Talmudic texts in which the fury of the rabbis, a far from violent or bloody-minded class of men, burst out against these people. The gentle Rabbi Hillel asserted, they have no conscience and they are anything but human. Rabbi Jonathan hoped that every one of these wretches might be split in two, yes, in two, like a fish. A Jew must not marry the daughter of an Am-Ha-Arez, it was said. Why? Because the sacred book of Deuteronomy said in its 27th chapter, Cursed be the man who mates with any beast. As for the Rabbi Eliezer, he said, It is allowable to quarter an Am-Ha-Arez on the Sabbath day and even upon the Day of Atonement. And when his disciples, somewhat astonished, suggested that perhaps the word slaughter might be better, he replied, The slaughtering of an animal calls for a blessing, quartering does not. No doubt one must take these civilities with a grain of salt, but even so they are the evidence of a remarkable state of mind. Who then were these Am-Ha-Arez? The word means the people of the land, or the people of the earth, but in the course of time it had, in fact, covered a wide variety of human groups. In the first place, they were the rich Canaanites like that man from whom Abraham had obliged to buy the field in the cave of Machpelah. Then the Israelite landed proprietors who had sometimes played a quasi-official role during the time of the kings, but who were despised by the soldiers and the priests. Then, immediately after the exile, the expression became totally insulting, and this for a very simple reason. During the Jews' absence in Babylon, the lands of Palestine had, as we have seen, been occupied by people of various races, Samaritans, Aramaeans, Philistines, and even Mesopotamians, and the returning Jews had never forgiven them this usurpation. So the Samaritans, that's why they said to Jesus, say we not well that thou art a Samaritan and has a devil? It was actually a racist comment because they were calling him a mixed person. So, and that's why he also used the parable of the Good Samaritan. To this very natural feeling of resentment there was added the contempt, or indeed the hatred of the practicing Jew for those who, although they were circumcised, did not observe the law. That was the great reproach, and it was still to be heard on the lips of those Pharisees in St. John. As for these common folk who have no knowledge of the law, a curse is on them. As the doctors of the law had acquired more and more influence in the Jewish community, the contempt for the Am-Ha-Arez had increased, and it was now reinforced by the contempt of the learned man for the illiterate. The formal definition of the Am-Ha-Arez in the Talmud is, he who does not eat his bread in a state of ritual cleanness. That is to say, he who plays fast and loose with the Torah. It was not a mere chance that Galilee was thought of as the chief center of the Am-Ha-Arez, and that it was so much abused by the rabbis of Judea. For it was in this province that the mixture of races had been greatest, to such a degree, indeed, that the very name of the place, as we have seen, meant the circle of the unbelievers. A little before the disaster of the year 70, that is to say, at a time when the rabbis had very strong reasons to mistrust the class in the region from which the chief ringleaders of the Christian sect had sprung, the Rabbi Jochanan ben Zakkai wrote, Galilee, Galilee, thou hast always hated the law. There seems to be no doubt that the hatred of the Am-Ha-Arez was based far more on religion than upon any social reasons, but the Encyclopedia Judaica, in the article that it devotes to the Am-Ha-Arez, judiciously observes, this attitude contributed a great deal to the strengthening of the new sect of Christians, among them the people of the land, found a loving welcome, whereas on the part of the learned, they met with nothing but the most violent repulsion. Christianity did not receive those who came to it with the Pharisees' rigid requirements as to the faithful observation of the law, but it had a greater understanding of the people's way of life. So I'm going to also add this to some stuff I'm going to do on education. And the thing is that if the Holy Spirit's teaching us education and having college degrees and doctorates and all that have nothing to do with revelation. And that's what Isaiah 29 talks about when it talks about the fear of God being taught by rote. You know, he says, take it to the learned man. And he says, I can't read this, it is sealed. And then he says, take it to the poor, or the unlearned man. And he says, I can't read this, I'm unlearned. So the thing is that this is a book that's open. The Bible is a book that's open in our hearts. And people have contempt for people who have revelation. And they'll say, like they said to John and Peter, how did these men know this stuff, being unlearned and ignorant men? Because they were fishermen. They weren't like doctors and lawyers, you know, or through some big seminary. So that's who the Am-Ha-Arez are, is people who are looked on as inferior race, or inferior in learning, or people that pride and arrogant men completely say are against God. And so I hope that this helped you learn a little bit about the Am-Ha-Arez. And this is how you spell it right there. Am-Ha-Arez. Who were the Am-Ha-Arez? I hope you know a little bit now from Daily Life in Palestine at the time of Christ. Alright, well, y'all have a good one. Thanks for watching. Bye.